I noticed number 1 fuel tank out of the Lancaster was on Gerbs' bench, so I asked him what he was about to do with it.
All the original self-sealing covering's got to come off.
Yeah. When you say self-sealing, so if it got shrapnel in it, something like that, it'd seal it, would it?
Yeah. What happens is the petrol starts coming out of whatever hole's been made, and then this cellular rubber reacts with the fuel, and the rubber expands, and it fills the hole and helps stem the flow, or if you're lucky, even stop it.
Yeah.
And then you're back down to bare metal, but with the original adhesive on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Which obviously we'll have to clean off.
Will you bother to put this self-sealer back on or not? Or?
Well, apparently not, but we'll see. It needs it in the area of the straps.
Yeah.
But to my way of thinking, all this rubber helps damp out drumming and absorb vibration and movement as well.
Yeah.
So I think the jury's out on that one.
Yeah. Are the other 2 tanks in the other 4 tanks in the Lancaster okay? Have they been,
No, they haven't been overhauled yet. The other tanks that have been overhauled are the number 3s, which are the outboard tanks. Yeah. And they're in store in the archives.
Yeah. Oh, so you've only got 2 tanks on the Lancaster then?
Yeah, the number 2s.
Yeah.
So basically, as you look at the wing,
yeah,
this is the number 1 tank, which is in the centre section.
Yeah.
There's one engine. Number 2 tanks we're running with, they're between the engines. And then number 3 tank is outboard, and they're the ones over in store.
Oh.
So we just finished stripping this end this morning.
Yeah. Does it take some getting off?
It comes off in varying degrees. Because the rubber's bonded, so sometimes you can get behind it.
It's like underlay for a carpet, isn't it?
Yeah. And it will come away.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will come away with some of the rubber, other times it will come away with just the fabric, and then you have to tackle the rubber again.
Yeah.
And then you're down to the base layer of the material.
Yeah. So what would this have been in the 40s then? Would it be rubber?
Yeah.
Or a synthetic?
Some sort of rubber, cellular rubber. But this is the bottom side of the tank, so basically the tank's upside down.
Yeah.
That's where your fuel jettison mechanism would have gone. And then the paper square, just outboard of that, is the elbow fitting, or would be your elbow fitting for your fuel pump. So on the bottom of the tank, and about 2/3 up, because we're upside down, up the side of the tank, you've got 2 layers of rubber, and then that demarcation line is where it changes to 1 layer of rubber for the top third of the tank and the upper surface of the tank.
Yeah. Well, why would the change from 1 layer to 2 layers? Because the fuel is at the bottom.
Yeah,
leak out more?
Well, presumably because the underside of the tank is the more vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it would be, yeah. And what did you say that hole was?
This one here?
Yeah.
That's where the fuel jettison mechanism went. So there's a control, it was hydraulic, there's a control down by the pilot's seat, and if they wanted to lose weight fast because of the fire and to make the landing easier, there's a pin which was withdrawn, and then a flap comes down underneath the tank panel, and then there's a big flexible rubber concertina tube, and that drops down into the airflow, and literally the contents of the tank just drop out.
Yeah, fast as well, I should say. Yeah. Oh, let's hope the tanks were they leaking at all, the tank?
Apparently, I think this is the number 1 tank for starboard. One of the 2 inboard tanks, I'm not sure which one, but reportedly did have a leak in it.
Yeah.
Leaks. So yet to ascertain that.
Yeah. And can you repair the tank safely?
Yeah.
For air weather condition like?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
They could be welded by a specialist,
Yes.
and then pressure.
How would you go on if you was going to start welding when the fumes, would you say all the fumes now of the petrol have gone out of it?
Well, you'd vent the tank, or you could even fill it with inert gas.
Yeah, yeah,
As I say, that's a specialist job.
yeah. This is a, what, sorry?
This is an oil and water trap.
Oh yeah.
So you got compressed air from the compressor is introduced into this, and there's a stack pipe and an arrangement inside where the oil is given a chance to drop out from suspension from the air, and then it comes out of this outlet and then off eventually to your filter and air bottle, and then periodically you undo that and the contents are drained out.
Yeah. And where does this fit? On the...
This is up on the engine accessory panel in the starboard undercarriage bay. So that's that, but we're going to use this in conjunction with this little fella here. This valve relieves the pressure in the pneumatic system at a predetermined level. So if you're charging the aircraft system from the ground using a air bottle on the trolley, this will relieve at around 450 psi.
Yeah.
So its other function is to do exactly the same. So when the aircraft's flying along, the air compressor attached to the engine is permanently in operation. Because you're not probably using any services in the air, it will quickly build up to its predetermined level, and again at that set level this will relieve and let the air compressor just carry on working normally.
Yeah.
So it's new old stock, and so what we're going to do eventually when we sort ourselves out is, using the original AP, is basically construct a little test rig using this as a guidance.
Yeah.
So we can test that. So this oil and water trap, for the purpose of this exercise, will be my small air bottle. It's fed in, inlet, and then we've got outlet there. And what I'll do using that connection is fit a suitable gauge so we know what's going on.
Yeah.
Between that side and that side, with that little chap in the middle. The compressor, from the moment the engine starts, the compressor is in operation.
It is compressed,
So
yeah.
it'll build up to whatever system pressure this is set to, so in this case around 450-ish.
Yeah.
And then it'll constantly just offload
Yeah.
periodic. And then back on the ground, the aircraft taxis in, so you using rad shutters,
Yeah.
obviously wheel brakes, pressure drops, that senses the drop, seals everything off, and then it's allowing the engine driven compressor to replenish the aircraft storage bottle.
I'm with you now. Yeah. So the aircraft doesn't have like a decompressor on it where it idles all the time. It's still compressing air. It's under pressure all the time.
Yeah. The little engine driven air compressor is permanently in operation. This is a gondola jack which we overhauled, but unfortunately this is a later type which employed a different carrier and just O-rings.
Yeah.
There's one inside there for the action that seals the ram, one on the outside which seals the end cap in the body,
Yeah.
and then a third one which is actually the O-ring that seals your piston.
But which is your seal for your piston? This O-ring then?
That slot there accepts one O-ring.
Yeah.
That slot there accepts another one.
Yeah.
And then just inside there, the third O-ring, which seals the ram. But this is a later type. I think it's Canadian. Whereas this one,
Is this a new one, relatively new, or?
I'm not sure the age of it. No.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is it hasn't been used.
No. But the O-rings have let us down, so we're waiting. There's a company going to source us with some new O-rings.
So it's the O-rings which are what? Damaged, perished or old?
Just old.
Yeah.
And probably because they've been assembled and stuck. They're just the cross sections changed. They're not as resilient or flexible as they
I suppose you've got to be using these things to keep them working, if you get what I mean. If you leave them stationary, then they get flats on.
The O-ring in there was fine. It wasn't leaking past the ram. The O-ring in there was fine because the ram would actuate, it actually travelled. The one that let us down was this one. So we were getting, once that end cap was fully screwed in, we were getting fluid travelling along the threads between that and the cylinder body.
Yeah.
So once we've got that sorted out and sealed, that will then go onto the Lanc, because we've got a low pressure weep from the port rear bomb door jack.
Oh. So that will come off and get that serviced then, will it?
That's right. And then that will go on this. Once that's serviceable, that will go into stores.
Yeah.
Serviceable. Likewise, that one as well.
Yeah. These O-rings then, are they a special material to stop deterioration from the hydraulic oil?
Yeah, I believe it's a form of nitrile rubber.
That doesn't mean anything.
No, it's a spec in the type of rubber.
Yeah.
So there we are.
So what sort of pressure do you use on the piston? Oil pressure for closing the door?
It's about 850.
PSI? Right.
In the great scheme of things, it's relatively low pressure. I mean, aircraft are operating 3,000 psi these days. Last week, but this is some sort of probably like an equivalent of Evo stick now.
Yeah.
You can feel it's still tacky now.
It is, isn't it?
And it's the devil's own to remove, but we eventually found Tony Agar gave us a pot of cellulose thinners. You brush it on, leave it to go soft, and then you can scrape it off, but you have to do it before the thinners evaporates, or it just reverts to its previous
goes back,
state.
yeah. Oh, that's good then.
So it's going to take a while.
It is, isn't it? I'm just going to see Gerb and ask him where the tube from the fuel tank, number one fuel tank, when they jettison the fuel, he said the door, a flap opens and the tube, the concertina tube, comes out and gets rid of the fuel. But I don't know whereabouts underneath the actual flap is. So I'm just going to ask Gerb that, and we'll find that out.
There'd be a pin. Where that split pin is, you'd have a pin that pulls out the cable around that pulley, and then that hinge panel drops down, comes out into the airflow, and the Jettison pipe comes down into the airflow, and that's it. You get
That's it, yeah. Now, I've never noticed that before.
Yeah.
I've looked at it a few times, but I've never noticed
just
that.
Just on the number one tanks.
It doesn't.
No.
So you'd have to pump the fuel across.
Yeah.
I see. To get rid of it.
Because it's the biggest tank.
Yeah. This bomb door has been loaned by South Yorkshire Air Museum in Doncaster. They're going to make a jig for it and then restore it to a safety standard and fit it onto Just Jane. Just Jane bomb doors will go into the jig and be restored to airworthy condition. This will give them more time to complete the restoration. I saw Brad looking at this section of the door it reveals a wooden structure underneath. Several parts of the Lancaster are made of wood. So far, leading edge on both fins, top of the wingtips, a wooden former at the bottom of the wingtips, now the bomb bay doors.